I never realized just how much I wanted a game like this to exist until I started to give this one a shot. The Red Lantern is a game about you and your dog surviving the harsh wilderness with the goal of getting to a friend's shack. Inexperienced and unsure how to prepare for the journey, your character packs up as best as she can and leaves on an exciting exhibition into the frozen unknown. This is a survival game where you have to manage the hunger meter of both you and your companions. You also have to minimize injuries while also trying to find important resources that could aid in your survival. It can therefore be a stressful game as you're unsure of what you'll find on your travels. You're at the mercy of the elements, and one false step can cost you your whole run. However, regardless of that fact, this is still one of the most captivating and relaxing games that I had the pleasure of playing with my brother. It uses its survival mechanics in order to accentuate the chemistry that sets in between you and your dogs. It's therefore about those cozy moments where you decide to make camp and feed them an exorbitant amount of food as a reward for their kinship. They became part of my family, and being with them felt captivating, even long after the credits had rolled. The game starts with the protagonist driving on a desolate road as she reflects on her life decisions. We learned that it was her lifelong dream to leave San Francisco and settle in Alaska. She essentially heard from a friend that dog sled races were exhilarating, and that discussion gave birth to her dream of becoming a musher. Regardless of her lack of knowledge and general understanding of the challenges that were ahead of her, she decided to take hold of her destiny, leave everything behind, and assemble her dream team. With Chomper by her side, you decide to take care of the first requirement on your list, which is to find the perfect dogs for the trip. You then get to choose between 9 different dogs, and they're so fluffy! They're so cute! It is so adorable! I love it! Anyways, it goes on like this for a while, and as you interact with them, you also get a sense of their personality. One is goofy and loves to sleep in the snow, but that doesn't stop him from being brave in the face of danger. One has such energy that he tried the snow under his feet by running from one end of the track to another. We're definitely taking that one. One is... Okay, well... I do love the name though. Slayer sounds badass, like a dog version of the Doomslayer, but I don't know. Doesn't really seem to want to join us, so let's just skip this one for now. Once you've selected your 5 dogs, you're then ready for the final checkups. With food, fresh birch, bullets for our gun, and a medkit strapped to the sled, we hop onto it and signal the dogs to start running. We're rapidly struck by a sense of awe as we traverse the wonderful rendered landscape. Seeing the trees from afar as the sun pierces through the sky and illuminates the barren wasteland is such a sight to behold. Plus, with the game taking care of steering the sled, it allows you to properly immerse yourself in your surroundings and lose yourself in the movement of the scenery. Days are bright and reflective, mountains can be seen in the distance, making the land feel vast and endless. Animals will also often cross your path, adding to the sense of wonder that the game excels in creating. Nights, on the other hand, are dark and mysterious. The view is very limited and therefore feels like something is always around the corner, waiting to ambush you at the first chance they get. However, this sense of insecurity never lasts long because the scenery rapidly changes, revealing probably the most stupefyingly beautiful Milky Way that I've ever seen in a video game. It's moments like these that really made me connect with the protagonist because I could imagine what she was feeling. She was pursuing her dream and got rewarded for following it, while I felt thankful that I could experience it with my brother. It's the perfect game to play after a grueling week, and it's one that I see myself booting up yearly just to relive the feeling that I get every time that I lift my head towards the skies. However, those moments never really last long because eventually you'll be brought back to Earth by something that your companion encountered along the commute. There are essentially 3 types of them in the game, with the first one being the unavoidable skits. The dogs might find a squirrel along the way and insist on chasing it, for example, stopping the run and forcing you to run after it. These are usually inoffensive and help push the narrative of the dog that you pre-select as the captain of the pack. We then get to choose between a few dialogue options, which each having their own success rate. Choosing the right option would, in this case, mean that the dog was able to eat its prey, filling the hunger meter and progress his story arc. Fail, and you leave without any of the spoils. Second type of encounters are the ones that will be taking most of your time. As you don't control the sled, your job is therefore to analyze the surroundings and decide what's best for the herd. It's your responsibility to look ahead and decide if investigating a random noise, a random shriek, or a random cabin is worth the risk. Then, once you've taken a decision to investigate something, you have to decide if it's worth going all in and using a bullet in order to take down the beast. Sometimes, it's better to stay back and appreciate the scenery. The world doesn't revolve around you, so you might discover something unique and inspiring. It's actually really cool that the game has so many different animals and events related to each, so taking part in the same one might actually end up in a different way entirely. For example, you might see a cub running along the road, and if you follow it, you'll get the option of observing it, which can end in 3 different ways. You might get the obvious scenario, which is that the mom steps into the scenery and defends her child. But if you're lucky, you might just see something magical and get an achievement for it. Although, as you have to manage both your and your dog's hunger meters, you're kind of forced to shoot something if you want to survive. Smaller creatures like rabbits and birds are indeed easy to kill, but yield negligible rewards. Although, if you're lucky, you might be able to order your dogs to catch them, saving a bullet while also potentially adding food to the counter. Bigger animals like deers, mooses, and caribou double the amount of food collected, but are also more resistant and dangerous. What also doesn't help is the fact that the aiming minigame is way harder than it has any right to be. Both balls move independently from left to right, and it's your job to wait for them to juxtapose before pulling the trigger. The good news is that you can slow down the movement of the smaller sphere, essentially delaying its movement considerably while allowing the other one to catch up to you. The bad news is that you'll often miscalculate the timing and miss your chance. Plus, with the whole thing being on a timer, there's nothing worse than failing to align the spheres repeatedly, wasting a bullet and seeing the animal either run away or charge straight towards you. There's also one more thing that you always need to consider when attacking a wild animal, and it's that even scoring a hit might not actually kill it. Sometimes, a second bullet is necessary in order to finish the job, which is frustrating because you might not have a second bullet to spare. Other times, you were planning on keeping it for emergencies, so it can be really frustrating when you realize that you're at the game's mercy for reasons that are out of your control. I do have to admit that I'm making the situation sound worse than it actually is. Having to double tap an enemy is an extremely rare occurrence, and as you'll be hunting often throughout your journey, it won't take long for you to learn the timing of the minigame. After a run or two, you'll be aligning both spheres consistently with ease, so getting a shot will become as easy as stroking your fingers on a dog's fur. On the other hand, there's also a hidden probability meter that dictates your success rate. It's therefore possible for you to succeed in the aiming minigame and miss just because the game wished it as such. Still, it only seems to happen during the encounters with very big animals, which makes sense. I mean, she has no experience wielding a weapon, let alone a gun that's clearly due for some refurbishing. Her aim is therefore far from perfect, which is why the minigame is as unstable as it is. Anyways, as you complete your runs and learn the different encounters that you can take part in, you'll be able to refine your understanding of the land and start seeing patterns in the encounters. Even if 99% of them are random, the scenarios will always repeat, so letting your dogs chase the squirrel, for example, will always lead to him eating it, guaranteeing a sure way of getting food on your travels. However, the biggest lesson in the game is that you always need to put your trust in your dogs. If they sense something and believe it's worth investigating, always trust their instinct and follow their lead. You might be the person in charge, but asking for trust requires that you also trust that they'll do the right thing when the time requires it. This is made even more true when facing the last 1% of encounters. These are also unavoidable and stop you dead on your tracks. It usually involves around a dangerous animal ambushing you and therefore preventing you from taking precautionary measures. These require quick thinking and luck in order to decide which of the options will minimize the damage sustained by the crew. Most of the time though, one of your dogs will end up saving you at the cost of its own health, preventing him from running while also making it harder for the remaining dogs to pull the sled. Although, as heart-shattering as it is to know that your incompetence cost him his health, seeing him all wrapped up in our blankets is just so adorable. It's a slight visual change, but it makes the rest of the trip feel more personal in a way. It looks like I have a passenger on board, which creates a new dynamic. However, it's also a constant reminder of how unforgiving nature can be, so healing him as soon as possible is really the only way to guarantee everyone's safe passage home. We can therefore decide to build a camp, which allows us to take part in a lot of different mechanics. On top of it being the perfect place to heal any wounded individuals, you can also spend some quality time with your dogs and offer them some word of encouragement. It helps strengthen the bond that you have with them, and after an eventful encounter like the one that I mentioned previously, it really helps relieve any leftover stress that might still be haunting you and your team. If good company isn't enough to calm your nerves, some fresh meat will certainly do the job. The camp is also the place that you can start a fire in order to heat yourself up and cook some food. However, as the food source for both the player and the dogs are the same, you have to weigh your options and decide who gets what portion. What also makes this decision difficult is the fact that the food doesn't have the same value for both parties. Each pieces we eat covers a fourth of our meter, while the same quantity only covers an eighth for the dogs. However, our food meter depletes at a faster rate than theirs, and we can't eat whatever we find along the way, unlike the dogs. Plus, we also need to cook our food, which means that we can't just stop whenever we feel like it in order to make a fire. We need to randomly find some birch to start one, which means that we'll be constantly keeping an irritated eye on our surroundings, hoping to find the last resource that we need in order to survive. This then brings me to the main reason as to why this game is, at first, as unforgiving as it is. Our protagonist has no idea what she's doing, which means that we start the game extremely unprepared for what's to come. You'll be weighing every bullet because she didn't anticipate how long and dangerous the journey was going to be. You'll be struggling to also make a fire because she never thought of bringing a fire starting kit. You'll be delaying to heal yourself and your dogs because she only thought of bringing a single med kit. The game can be very stressful at first because you'll be realizing just how unprepared she was for the journey ahead. At the same time, this naivety also mirrors the player because we also don't know what the devs have in store for us. We therefore do our best to adapt, which is the bread and butter of the game. What also makes the game easier is that Red Lantern has a basic legacy system. Regardless if you succeed in your run or not, your character will learn from it and will consider bringing more resources along the way. At the same time, nature will always provide for those that put their trust in her. It's therefore possible to find items that were abandoned by past travelers that help compensate for her lack of foresight. For example, the first item that I found in both my playthroughs was the axe, which, on top of it having uses in some encounters, also allows you to collect birch without wasting any energy, allowing you to last longer without eating. I won't spoil the rest, but know that it's the main reason as to why this game ended up giving me the same feelings as when I played Stardew Valley for the first time. It's not a hard game by any sense of the word. Me and my brother finished the game on our second run. On top of us having a better understanding of the challenges ahead of us, we were also able to start with more resources, which in turn gave us more options during the trip. Symbolically, this versatility also represented the musher's journey into the unknown. She risked it all because she never felt like she fit in wherever she went. She wanted to prove to herself that she was able to survive one of the harshest weathers on the planet, and credits roll when the goal has been obtained. It's a simple hero's journey, and it's one that's satisfying to take part in because it ends up feeling like a personal patronage. She was able to prove that all dreams can become true if you're ready to bite hard and sink your teeth into it. Nothing better represents this concept more than our personal journal. As we take part in new experiences, we fill the empty lines with anecdotes from our travels, visually representing just how far we went since we left our car. Simultaneously, it's a keepsake for all the best moments that fill our journey. It's the main reason why, at the end of the day, I won't really recall the survival elements in the game. I'll remember it for the times that one of my dogs saved my life from a starving bear. I'll remember it for how hard it was to choose what dogs I should bring with me on the journey. And finally, I'll remember it for the excellent script and voice acting. The actress was able to humanize the character so successfully that I enjoyed being her as much as I enjoyed being part of the journey. It's an amazing experience from start to finish, and it's one that I don't think that you'll regret if you decide to try it for yourself. Also, in case you thought that I spoiled a lot during this review, finishing the game doesn't actually end the game. There are a lot of surprises that the game unravels when you reach the end, which I won't get into here. All that I would say is that finishing the game once is really only the beginning, and for what it's worth, I would highly recommend it to you, especially if you're looking for something to warm you up as you wait for the weather to follow suit. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Do like and subscribe and let me know, are you actually gonna try it out? Did you ever do dog sledding? Like, that sounds pretty cool. And speaking of cool, my mom decided to edit this video, and she's also done dog sledding, so like, this is kind of the perfect video for her to start with. And with that, thanks a lot for making this gamer's dream a reality. I really appreciate you, and I do love reading your comments and knowing that you enjoyed my video. So, have a nice day everyone. Thank you a lot for watching.